In this video, I am going to show you how to factor trinomials of the type x squared plus bx plus c. These are trinomials where there is no coefficient of the x squared term at the beginning of the trinomial. So recall from earlier in the chapter that when you multiply the two binomials shown x plus 3 times the quantity x plus 5, you would get x squared plus 5x plus 3x plus 15, which simplifies to x squared plus 8x plus 15. In this lesson, we are going to reverse that process and work backwards. In order to determine what the two binomial factors are that produce the final trinomial, you want to ask yourself these two questions. You need to find two numbers that both multiply together to give you the c value, that's the last term in the trinomial, but add together to give you the b value, which is the coefficient of the x term in the middle of the trinomial. If you can answer those questions, then you can come up with your binomial factors. So again, what two numbers multiply together to give you c, but add together to give you b? Let's take a look at the first type of problems where we have all addition, ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so if we look at our trinomial, we want to know what two numbers multiply together to give us 10, but add together to give us 7. We need the same two numbers for both. If you are unsure initially, what I would suggest doing is listing the factors of the c value. So factors of 10 are 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. Which of those two pairs adds together to give you 7? And of course that's 2 and 5. That means that our binomial factors are going to be x plus 2 and x plus 5. Since x times x is x squared, x times 5 is 5x, 2 times x is 2x, and then when we add those together we get our 7x, and then 2 times 5 is 10. So that is our binomial factors, and our final answer you would just need to write x plus 2 times the quantity x plus 5. And it doesn't matter which order these binomials are in our answer. Let's take a look at one more example together. So we want to find what two numbers multiply together to equal 20, but add together to equal 21. Again, you can start by listing the factors of 20 and then taking a look which two add together to give you 21. Of course, that's 20 and 1. So that is x plus 20 and x plus 1 are our two binomial factors. Okay, before we move on to the next type, let's give this example a try on our own. The two factors that multiply together to give you 30, but add together to give you 11 are 5 and 6. Therefore, our binomial factors are x plus 5 and x plus 6. Okay, our next type is where you're going to have a subtraction sign in front of just the bx term. So it's x squared minus bx plus c. So we still have the same questions. What two numbers multiply together to give us c? But in this case, we want them to add together to give us a negative b. So we have to be very careful considering some negative factors as well. So what two numbers would multiply together to give you a positive 42, but add together to equal a negative 17? Listing the factors of 42 In this case, since we need a positive c value but a negative b value, both of our factors should be negative. So we have negative 42 and a negative 1. Those two would multiply together to give you a positive 42, but they would add together to equal a negative 43, so that does not work. We also have the options of negative 21 and negative 2. Those multiply together to give us a positive 42, but they add together to equal negative 23, so that does not work. Our next factors are negative 14 and negative 3, which multiply together to give us positive 42, and they do add together to give us negative 17. So those are our two binomial factors. So we're going to have, for this, instead of plus, and we're going to have d minus 14, and we're going to have d minus 3. So those are our two binomial factors here. Try one more together. What two numbers multiply to give you positive 18, but add together to equal a negative 11? So starting with negative 18 and negative 1, that does not work. We also have negative 9 and negative 2. That does work because negative 9 plus negative 2 is negative 11. So we have x minus 9 and x minus 2. And again, it does not matter what order you put those two sets of parentheses in, as long as it is x minus 9 in one of them and x minus 2 in the other one. Okay, take a second to try this one on your own. And here, this one should be x minus 16 and x minus 3, because the two factors that multiply together to give you 48 but add together to give you negative 19 are negative 16 and negative 3. Okay, our final type, we can either have a plus or minus bx and either a plus or minus c, a combination of those two addition and subtraction signs. If they were both addition, of course, that would just take us back to our first type A. If they, what we haven't seen is where this is plus, this is minus, and we haven't seen where they're both minus. So that's kind of what we're looking at here in type C. So the first example is m squared plus 6m minus 27. So we need to figure out two numbers that multiply together to give us a negative 27, but add together to give us a positive 6. So to get a negative value for C, you're going to need one positive and one negative factor. In order to get a positive B, the positive factor is going to have to be the bigger of the two factors, so that we make sure we have a positive b value. So factors of 27 are 27 and negative 1. That would give us a positive b value, but it wouldn't be positive 6. So let's try positive 9 and negative 3, which would work because 9 plus negative 3 is positive 6. And 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. So we have m plus 9 and m minus 3 are our two binomial factors. Looking at this example, we need two numbers that multiply together to give us negative 18, but two numbers that add together to give us a negative 3. So in this case, we are going to still need one positive and one negative factor, but in this case the negative factor needs to be the bigger of the two absolute values so that we end up with a negative b value. So we have options of positive 1 and negative 18. That works for our c value but doesn't work for our b value, so we move on to positive 2 and negative 9. Again, that works for our c but does not work for our b. So we'll try positive 3 and negative 6, and that will work for both C and B. So we get P plus 3, and we have P minus 6 are our two binomial factors. Okay, and here is an example for you to give a try for this last type. If you try this m squared plus 8m minus 20, and that is going to be m plus 10 times m minus 2. And for our last little added challenge here, give this second one a try. In this, we're going to have v minus 6w and v plus 8w. So the difference here is that we just have that w term coming with the second value in our binomial factors. That's how we get that w and that w squared. Okay, so remember those two important questions to ask yourself. What two numbers multiply together to equal C, but add together to equal B? That will help you find your two binomial factors for factoring trinomials.